Welcome to Week in One. I'm Heidi Jokos. I'll be taking you through some of the big stories of the week. The moment at which Duduzane Zuma will learn his fate in his culpable homicide trial is drawing closer. The businessman crashed his Porsche into a taxi on a rainy evening on the 1st of February 2014, killing 30-year-old Phumzile Dube. He's pleaded not guilty. Reporter Michael Apple was in the Randburg Magistrate's court.
Duduzane Zuma's second day on the stand began with State Prosecutor Yusuf Baba questioning whether travelling between 90 and 100 kilometers per hour was appropriate, considering the weather conditions on the evening of the 1st of February 2014. Zuma remains confident that it was. The defence called an expert witness, Conrad Lotter, who testified that the Porsche 911, with its lightweight body and wide tyres, is prone to aquaplaning, even at speeds as low as 60 kilometers an hour. The final witness on the case is an apparent eyewitness of the accident, Michael Jankelwitz. Asked why it's taken him almost 5 years to come forward and give his version of events of what he saw that night, he says it's because in late 2017 he heard that AfriForum's Harry Nell was going to prosecute the case. He says he just wants Zuma to have a fair trial, and he knows Nell would be, quote, going for blood. The case resumes on the 20th of June for closing arguments. Michael Apple, Johannesburg.
It's estimated that by 2030, Transnet will have spent 3.2 billion rand servicing 2 loans. Acting CEO Mohammed Mohammedi's testified how interest rates were swapped in 2015. He says regiments arranged it despite Transnet staff having the skill to do so. Erin Bates filed the story coming out of the state capture inquiry.
By February, Transnet had paid over 1.4 billion rand servicing 2 multi-billion rand loans.
785 million with the Nedbank transaction and 696.6 million with the Transnet Second Defined Pension Fund transaction.
Both relate to the purchase of 1,064 locomotives over 15 years. Around October 2015, Transnet sought a 12 billion rand loan with Regiments Consulting. Acting Group CEO Mohammed Mohammedi says the intermediary was moot.
The Transnet Treasury team had and still has the expertise to handle these transactions.
Transnet's then Treasurer Petolo Ramosebudi allegedly ignored advice.
The key question is, should Transnet have gone into the swaps at all? And as I mentioned, the Deputy Treasurer at the time didn't agree with the swaps.
Regiment secured the loan through the ZAR group of 5 banks. It was agreed to with a floating interest rate. One analyst explains.
It was decided that the floating rate should be swapped for a fixed rate that was higher than the floating rate to avoid the danger of the interest rates rising and you having to pay more because the floating rates rose as well.
In December 2015, the floating interest rate was swapped for a fixed one. All this in a matter of days.
Transnet had not executed an interest rate swap for many years, which then begs the question, why this one? Why suddenly?
And so there's a question whether Nedbank was in some way, negligent or, acting badly towards its client, in inverted commas, which is Transnet, by obviously, given the floating, then being involved as well in the fixing.
3 months on, in March 2016, Nedbank's Moss Brickman wrote to Ramosebudi, seeking proof he had authority to agree to the swap, and confirmation Transnet was happy with the rates.
After the fact, I keep saying that, Chair, because it's quite critical, after the fact, to say that it's acceptable that we charged you 12.37% when the mid-market was 11.42%. It was too high.
You infer that the person who made this decision made it for the benefit of regiments. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair.
To assist or benefit regiment.
Transnet is set to lose more money.
Transnet will be what we would call out of the money by an estimated 3.2 billion rand over the 15 years.
The agreements conclude in 2030. Erin Bates, Johannesburg.
Analysts are describing the 55.2% joblessness rate among the youth as a ticking time bomb. Latest figures from Statistics South Africa show more young people are not working. The official unemployment rate has now climbed to 27.6% in 3 months to March this year. Dimakatso Lushuru has the details.
As government figures out how to meet its objective of creating nearly 300,000 jobs per year, some economists are skeptical.
When you start looking at numbers where the loss is so great, even on a year-on-year basis, which takes the quarter-on-quarter change out, there was a huge loss in jobs. So it makes the government's goal of creating these jobs look like pie in the sky.
Most pressing are the millions of young people who are unemployed regardless of education level. Then there are those who have neither jobs nor schooling.
The problem is we have almost a lost generation where people who have less than a matric, the unemployment rate is exceptionally high. And as you go into like graduates, the unemployment rate is much lower. So we need to improve the education and skills output. Unfortunately, there's this lost generation. It's likely to result in increased social unrest in the future.
237,000 people were unemployed in the first quarter of 2019, with the overall number of unemployed standing at 6.2 million. And there's been little good news.
We also have observed that in the area of transport, there were gains of 59,000 jobs quarter on quarter, but they were not enough to offset the unemployment rate.
The formal sector has bled the most jobs. Construction leads the pack with 142,000 jobs lost. It is followed by finance and services. The agricultural sector lost 12,000 jobs. Meanwhile, the absorption rate dropped by 0.7 percentage points to 42.6%. Dimakatso Lushuru, Pretoria.
The ANC Youth League's eThekwini region once embattled Mayor Zandile Gumede fired. Pressure is mounting on the ANC to act on Gumede amid fraud and corruption charges. She's out on 50,000 rand bail with strict conditions. ENCA's Sipa Mandlagoge reports.
The hour to act has arrived.
The ANC in KwaZulu-Natal is at crossroads over the future of the chair of the party's biggest region. eThekwini Mayor Zandile Gumede is fighting for her political survival amid mounting legal woes.
She needs to resign. She needs to vacate the office completely, allow the ANC space to appoint someone else who the ANC will have confidence in, and then that person will take the city and the people of the city forward. And the important thing is we need to deliver services at this stage. We cannot have a situation where there's a temporary person who's stepping aside and all those kind of things.
Gumede's staunch supporter, the ANC Women's League, is adamant she isn't going anywhere. In a scathing statement, the Women's League labels the Youth League as juveniles and hungry lions. The SACP is advocating for a different approach.
Take everything as the national office have done, take everything to the integrity committee, assess everything that needs to be assessed and make a decision.
COSATU is calling on law enforcement agencies and public prosecutors to ensure they have watertight cases before charging individuals.
We are very reluctant as COSATU to say that those who are implicated, who are alleged to have been implicated on these matters, should step down, because there is that hopelessness as to whether they have actually committed those crimes or they have actually committed. The principle of not being guilty up until proven otherwise should be applicable to all South Africans.
The ANC in the province has since summoned the eThekwini regional leadership to a meeting.
Yes, it's a matter that involves certain individuals, but its implications are beyond the individuals. There is an impact to the ANC and an impact to the state of governance in the city. And that is why we thought, let's bring in the leadership and let's have a discussion about
the better ways to deal and manage this difficult issue.
Gumede told ENCA she'll break her silence as soon as she's consulted her party and legal team. Siphamandla Goge, Durban.
Coming up, a week after the big winners and losers of the 2019 general elections, we bring you details of what happens next going into Parliament.